Mike the Warhost here, and today we're continuing our Mythos faction coverage by talking about the Custos Crypta. The Custos Crypta were originally a gift to Kushite Emperor Shabaka from the goddess Khepera as a reward for his blood sacrifices. When the emperor was overthrown, however, the insectile servants were murdered and entombed with the pharaoh nearly 2,000 years ago. A freak accident in 1919 led to the revival of the sole survivor of the coup and the mental enslavement of two innocent museum workers to the will of Khepera. Now the ancient goddess has agents on Earth willing to fight in the Shadow War in her name. If you want to learn more about the lore of the Custos Crypta, you can find a brief overview currently available on the Mythos website. A link will be in the description below. The Custos Crypta faction box contains the following models adding up to 100 points. Crypt Guardian, Crypt Sham, 2 Crypt Grubs, Sarah Harriet, and Victoria Taylor. The Crypt Guardian is your leader and will get an additional action point when activating. It's certainly fast on its feet with a move value of 7 and charge value of 10, giving it an impressive threat range. Its bladed limbs have an attack value of 8 and can apply bleed, as well as a digestive enzyme ranged attack with a 10-inch range and the possibility of applying blind. Its Psychic Screech will force all enemy models in an 8-inch range to pass a sanity check or get a -2 penalty to all attack and defense rolls until the end of the turn. The Crypt Guardian can also wound a nearby Crypt Grub for 4 wounds and get 3 in return. Winged lets him pass all jumping and falling tests. Sure-footed lets it ignore difficult terrain, and Guardian gives it rerolls on both dice for an attack or test when within 4 inches of a friendly objective. Ambush Predator lets the Crypt Guardian hit even harder when charging with a +1 combat attack bonus. When flipped to Alter, the Crypt Guardian becomes a bit of a liability. It loses both the Psychic Screech and Cannibal Myth abilities, as well as Ambush Predator. In place of that, the Crypt Guardian gets Insatiable, meaning it will need to attack somebody, friendly or not, or suffer a single wound at the end of its activation. It will also suffer some nerfs to its stats as well, making it less effective in combat. The Crypt Sham is a surprisingly tanky little trickster that can be used to catch your opponent off guard if used correctly. Like the Crypt Guardian, he comes with both bladed limbs and digestive enzyme attacks. Its perfect camouflage myth ability lets it reposition itself anywhere within 10 inches of its starting point and out of line of sight of all enemy models. This can be incredibly useful when needing to get to a specific point on the map quickly. Pass Unnoticed makes the unit only targetable if it's within 8 inches, Winged lets it auto-pass all jumping and falling tests, and Chitin reduces all incoming damage by 1. Like the Crypt Guardian, it becomes markedly less effective when flipped to Altered. The Crypt Sham loses perfect camouflage and Pass Unnoticed and gets several nerfs to its stat line. Fortunately, there are no significant penalties like Insatiable waiting on the other side of the card. The Crypt Grubs have several important things to keep in mind when using them. First is the Crypt Grub mutation mechanic. You can either spend 1 myth to roll on a mutation to grant, or you can spend 2 myth to choose from anyone you want. Crypt Grubs can only have 1 mutation at a time, and mutations do not stack. The second point to note is that the Crypt Grubs have a separate madness table to roll on, which you can find on page 13 of the rulebook. And if you look on the table, you'll see that if you get a critical success, you can potentially replace your Crypt Grub with another Crypt Guardian if your original is killed off. The third point is that the Crypt Grubs do not have the unique rule, meaning you can take as many as you want in a game once they are able to be purchased separately. Now that we have that out of the way, on to the unit rolls. Crypt Grubs come with the usual bladed limbs and digestive enzyme attacks, as well as Swarm, giving them a +2 combat attack bonus for outnumbering enemy models instead of the usual +1. Chitin reduces incoming damage by 1. And Guardian gives it rerolls on both dice for an attack or test when within 4 inches of a friendly objective. Flipping to Altered makes them much less effective than other units. They lose their ranged attack and gain Insatiable, making them a liability if left by themselves. They also lose a point of movement, making it harder to get into combat once altered. The last 2 units in the faction, Sarah Harriet and Victoria Taylor, are lackluster at best, which you would expect from mind-controlled slaves, but still. Fortunately, their cards are practically identical, so we can get through them pretty quickly. They both have a single knife available with a meager attack rating of 5. Chains of Smoke gives one enemy model within 8 inches a -1 penalty to defense rolls until the end of the turn. And Broken Psyche applies a -1 penalty to all sanity tests. When flipped to altered, their defense stats go down by 1, as does their maximum wounds value. See what I mean about lackluster? Fortunately, they're only 7 points each, so they can easily be replaced by a new Crypt Grub when building your list. The Custos Crypta excel at missions involving holding on to objectives, and thus should do very well for every game that isn't chance encounter, thanks to Guardian. Don't be stingy with your Crypt Guardian, since he can take an impressive amount of damage and has the potential to be resurrected if you roll well enough on the Madness table. Use the Crypt Sham to apply pressure where needed, thanks to perfect camouflage. The key to victory with this faction will be effective use of your Crypt Grubs and their mutations to respond to threats as needed. And remember to throw your units with Insatiable at your opponent as soon as they're about to flip, to avoid as much friendly fire as possible. As for Sarah and Victoria, either keep them as objective holders or run them forward as speed bumps. They're not really good for much else. Well, that's going to do it for me today. Stay tuned for more Wild West Exodus, Mythos, Fog and Friction, and Dystopian Wars content in the near future, as well as some looks at Lost World Exodus in the not so near future. Maybe. At some point. Please? Alright, take care everyone.